All right, cool. We're about five after, so I'm going to go ahead and start it. Before I get into the presentation, and I may have to set it back up, I wanted to take a minute for a very dear friend of ours. I'm going to share my screen here, so this is separate. Hopefully, y'all can see this web page, and I will post it in the chat. Was a very dear friend of ours and a member of our nonprofit. Linda Stone had been pretty active, and Nancy could tell you more about all the great stuff that she did with the team. Unfortunately, passed away last month. We're really, really sorry to hear this news, and I wanted to get the most important things up front because they're most important. And we're so sorry to have lost a friend and wish her family the best. There is a service coming up for her, and we'd like to send flowers to it. Here's the information. Hopefully, you can see what I'm seeing. It's on the 2nd of August at 11 a.m. at St. Sylvester's Catholic Church. We've done a lot of events there, and a lot of our members go to church there. It's a beautiful place, and we would love to, as a team, send flowers just in memory of her and the beautiful life that she lived. If that's something that you're interested in helping out with, just let us know. You can talk to Nancy, you can talk to Jersey Jerry. They'll be happy to help you. But this has a little bit about her life here and her family, and talks about her husband and her children and grandchildren. So really sweet lady that I had a chance to get to know. So I wanted to take a minute for her. So I'm going to post that web page in the chat function, and hopefully you can see it. So it's right there to everyone. So yeah, really tough situation, but we loved her very much and her family. And I think donating flowers and anything else you'd like to do for the service, I think would be great. Okay, I'm going to reload the slides and we'll get into the presentation. So what I'd like to do with this, it looks like we've got people still joining, quite a few people here on the call, which is great. It's like we've got 20 folks so far. And then I'll probably send out these slides. So if anybody wants a copy of them, just let me know. I'll be happy to send them to you. So I've got some material here. Really what this does, and you can see the agenda right here. This talks about our successes today. Some people have known us since we started a couple years ago, and they've kept up with us, know everything that we're doing. Some people are brand new, just joined the group, or they're interested in what the group has done. Some folks have just moved to Mars. Some people have been here their whole life for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. But I just want to cover quickly for about 5 or 10 minutes what we've done as a nonprofit, why we set it up in the first place, how we got to where we are, what we're currently doing. I've been overseas, as I kind of said in my last email, for the past 3 months, but the team has been extremely busy all summer. Very, very proud of them and all the things that they've done. So I want to show you that and their successes, where we're going, the future opportunities we have as a team, and then hopefully right around the 30, 35 minute mark, I'll be done with that and we'll get into the discussion and Q&A. And if you just joined, feel free to type questions in the chat function. I'll get to those first. If you know how to raise the hand thing, I'll call on you first, or as soon as I'm done with the written questions. And then after that, you can unmute your mics and we can talk through stuff. So if something pops out to you, feel free to jot that down in chat. I see Kim and Tom and several other folks have already used that, so you guys know what you're doing. Okay, cool. So let's jump right into it. So successes to date. When we started Preserve Navarre a couple years ago, there was a team of about 5 of us that started the group. And I kind of tell you honestly how I came about it is I was curious as to how Navarre got the way that it was, and I really fell in love with this place. I moved here in 2016, and I really wanted it to be absolutely beautiful the way it is, and to remain that way, to hold on to its local culture. And so I was interested in what's the best way to do that. And talking to people who had been here decades longer than I have, they had talked about how, well, we're growing at such a huge, huge rate, and no one can make it smart or slow it down, or really give the locals a vote. And I said, well, why don't you just talk to the zoning department or the mayor or city council? And I learned very quickly within a few days of being here that there wasn't one, that we were unincorporated. And so, I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So how are decisions made? And it was made up at the county. And I saw, kind of observed for the first few years that I was here, how that worked. And I started wondering, well, if there's no truly local representation, aren't we missing an opportunity to be able to make decisions for ourselves? And they said, oh, you're talking about incorporation. That's a hot topic in Navarre, and it still is today, as most people know. And so I looked at several of the previous efforts, and a lot of them made progress, but there wasn't any that got a majority support for the idea. And the one that was active when I first started looking into this about 6 years ago wasn't really focused on Navarre culture. The leader of the group didn't believe that Navarre had a culture, and he said, really, this is just trying to figure out someone who's going to pay for this to make incorporation happen. Navarre doesn't really have much of a culture, but it could be a good thing. And so, I was like, no, I don't really agree with that. I really think that Navarre does have a culture. It's got the Southern culture, it's got the beach culture, it's got history here. I've learned a lot about that over the years that I've been here, and some of the other team members can tell you about that. And I was like, I really believe there's a lot more to this culture than some folks may think. But I also recognize that with all they call it gentrification, I realize with all the people coming in, if we don't educate folks, and learn ourselves about Navarre's culture, then we can easily lose it. And so that's where the name Preserve Navarre came from, is we want to preserve Navarre's history. We want to preserve what makes it unique as a beautiful community and hold on to that. So we said, let's establish a nonprofit. Let's look into incorporation, but let's do this and keep our values set. Our goal in this is not to tax people to death or to create layers of government. Our goal is to preserve what makes Navarre special and beautiful. And so that's where the group came from. But I also was interested in knowing, well, how do people actually feel about this home rule incorporation issue? Because if people don't want it, then it's really not worth spending all of our time and money and all that stuff to to make it possible for them. So, I looked at the previous vote. The last one was in 2014, and 44% of Navarre residents that voted said yes, and 56 said no. So I said, if that's the same, then we're really not at a better place. So what we did is we invested in a survey, and we surveyed over 3,000 residents. We sent mailers to people's homes throughout the community. And not only did we ask, like, how do you feel about incorporation? Are you open to it? And we saw, I'll move my head here so you can see it, that 6.6 out of 10 was the average rating for the entire survey. But we also asked people, if we were to incorporate, how would you want that to go down? What would you like to see out of a city? Because if it's just a city that does the same thing that you're getting now, then it's useless. That's complete waste. It has to be a city that works for you. And the only way to know how to work for people is to ask them what they want, right? And so what we got out of the survey is kind of listed here on the slide. As you can see, we asked people, what should the boundaries be? What services would you want a city to provide? How would you like decisions to be made? These are the kind of questions that were in the survey that went out on the postcard and was online at yournavarre.com. And I put there on the slide, you can see what people responded with. Infrastructure was the big one. Stormwater mitigation. They want help with traffic easement. They want better access to roads and streets. Parks and recreation was a huge one. They want more opportunities for their families and for themselves to have recreation in Navarre, not have to travel all over the place just to go to, nice parks and things like that. And then support the local businesses, truly local businesses that are not necessarily corporate and may not even be franchises. Those businesses that really give us unique options that, are different than anywhere else in the world. That's what people wanted out of a city. That's what they weren't getting. And then you can see the mixed approach is how they wanted decisions to be made. Nobody wanted a really strong, powerful, high-tech government. They wanted decision making to be split, and they wanted something that kept the taxes low. So that was clear. And then, of course, you saw people that were hostile to it. I read every survey response. There was thousands of them, and some of them were very negative. I hate this idea, but then there was other people that were absolutely convinced of it. So you saw kind of the split in the community was present as well. So it wasn't something that we blew by. We said, okay, but we see that a lot of people are open to this idea. Their interests have been communicated as clearly. What do we do with that information? Well, it's enough for us to be able to continue with this effort. If it had been 30 or 40%, I probably would have said, and our team would have said, no, this isn't really an idea worth pursuing at this time. We'll wait 5 or 10 years, but that's not the results we got. But that's the basis. So people always ask me, why is this issue coming up again? Especially people that are against it. Why are we having to talk about this again? Well, it's because the people have asked for it. May not be every person, and a lot of the folks that are against it kind of have their own, little group of like-minded folks who are all against it. And they're saying, who is he talking about? But if you go door to door as we have, you'll see lots of people open to it. And that's what we continue to see. So what we did is we didn't want to be just purely political. We wanted to be a nonprofit. We wanted to be able to invest and continue to understand the community and how to serve it. Just kind of jumping in there and forcing it down people's throats is not the right way to do anything. We wanted this to come from the people and to grow and to develop based upon what they express. And so we had meetings. We've done several dozen of them. We've gotten involved in local businesses. You can see us there at Pickett's. We've gotten involved with other nonprofits, including charities, especially doing things like the Beach Bash, and we'll continue to do those things. But we said we wanted a grassroots nonprofit. We ran off of donations from the board. Your board's probably poured in about 20 grand into this over the past 3 years. And then we've asked people to become members, and that's $90 a year. And that's what's funded us. And the big thing that we said was only local people, only people who live and work in Navarre are going to be part of this group, because that's what it's about, is home rule. It's about Navarre citizens making decisions about their community, not about someone from another city or another community telling us what we should think or what we should do. And so that was kind of the restriction we put on it, is you have to have a small business here, you have to live here. That's what we want in our effort. And with that, we've raised, as you can see, over $80,000 to date, which has allowed us to do all these events, pay for the materials, the website, everything else that we've done. So we established that nonprofit, got it solidified at the state and federal level. Then we put out a feasibility study. They told me this was going to cost $40,000 to do. It was going to be as our biggest expense. We got that down to about 7,000. We paid for consultants to help us with this from about I think it was 4 different universities over the course of the process. We had Joe can tell you the team that we put together of locals who helped do a lot of the research. And then we had that fact checked by people who do this professionally. And what was cool is over the course of doing this study and looking at over a dozen different cities across the state of Florida, we learned that there's lots of opportunities for Navarre to receive revenue from taxes that we currently pay. The minute that you're declared a city or a municipality, you open yourself up to things like the municipal revenue sharing program, having your lost tax money come back home. So there's a lot of things that just being a city gives you access to, from which we currently pay. And we said, that's what we want. We want that. We want grants. We want tourism revenue. We want all of this stuff that we currently pay to be front and center of what we're doing. And so over 70% of the city budget year to year is from existing revenues repurposing. That's in line with what people want. They don't want to pay tons of more money in taxes. And so we said, okay, if we repurpose this revenue, is it enough to give people what they want? What was really helpful is that people were happy overall, maybe not every single person, but overall people were very happy with their law enforcement and with their fire and emergency services. Those are 2 of the biggest expenses that most cities have. So if you say, okay, we're just going to keep what we have with and contract with those services, then that helps us, that makes this a lot easier. Then we can focus on what people want. And that's where you see $12 million more in infrastructure, $4 million more for Parks and Rec, $3 million more for small businesses. Importantly, this is in addition to the county. You don't lose the county services because you become a city. You can look at Gulf Breeze at this, is that they get more per capita, per person, based upon their relationship with the county than we do in Navarre. And so it's addition to what we don't anticipate any loss in county revenue. What we expect actually is that to go up as the city is able to pull its weight and affect those elections at a higher level. And then having such a big base as Navarre with so many people, there's over 40,000 people living in Navarre, makes it pretty easy to be able to do this and to meet the criteria that locals have. And so you're looking at a lower tax rate, just below 1 mil, lower than Gulf Breeze, lower than Milton, and lower than Jay. So you'd be the lowest taxed in the entire county, and you'd still get all the benefits of bringing that revenue home from municipal sharing and elsewhere. So this study was shopped around all over the place. We put it out, I believe it was in the spring. I'd have to go back and look at the exact date, but I believe it was in April of 2022. And then we let people just kind of tear it up and tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. At one point we had looked at public transportation, and there was like electric buses that someone had put in there, and people said, I hate electric buses. I don't want that. I think that's terrible. And so we said, okay. And we took it out. There was red light cameras in it because Gulf Breeze and Fort Walton have red light cameras, and it's able to save them revenue for law enforcement. Something that a lot of the law enforcement folks wanted. But the people hated it. They said, I don't like that. There's questions about due process. We hate that. So we said, cool. And we took that out too. And we listened for months and months, held meetings, and we said, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. People said, oh, a 1 mill city is not possible. When we showed that there's over a dozen cities in Florida already that have 1 mill, including several that are the same or similar size to Navarre. So people said, okay, I get it, right? So we took the feedback from citizens, and then we re-released it in October with those changes made, showing again, our goal is to be able to serve the people, take constructive feedback, and be able to improve what we're doing. So that's still online. You can see that on our website at preservenavarre.com. We also wrote a charter. This was a really beautiful thing that Jerry presented to our team, but it followed the citizens' direction of a mixed approach. So we didn't do a strong mayor thing. We did a weak mayor. We gave the city council some power, but then there's checks with the city manager as well. So the power is split. I'm personally a huge fan of that, because I'm big into like American early history and Federalist and Anti-Federalist, and they split power between the different branches of government. So I love that. We do the same. So it's not like you're going to have a mayor election and then that person gets to change everything. Nope. It's split between all these. We showed it to our good friend Tim Baldock up at Crestview, who's won several awards for his job as a city manager, and he was extremely impressed and said, this is one of the best I've ever seen. So I put our charter up against anybody's. And again, it came from looking at dozens of examples across the state. There's committees. You can see some of them behind me in the material we pass out, that empower locals to make decisions. So we look at like tourism revenue, and a lot of folks are quick to say, well, this money was spent in Navarre and this money wasn't spent in Navarre, and let's argue about where it was spent. Important thing is, who's making that decision? Is that a local person making that decision? Is that a local office making that decision? Or is that someone that's hired by someone else? Because at that point, it could change. We'd like to see locals making those decisions. So when it comes to the beach, it gives a committee for Navarre Beach. You have to live on the beach to be part of that committee. Military and Veterans Affairs, be able to improve our relationship with the bases around the area to make sure we're taking care of our veterans, having events for them and things like that, working with the Legion and every other organization we can think of that helps. Emergency response, making sure that we're communicating with them, not something that costs us any more money, just to have a committee that helps the different fire departments, because there's several in the area, be able to communicate together. And then a big one is the city attorney to be able to represent us. I'm going to talk about corruption in a minute, but having an office that will help us navigate legal issues as a community is a big one, because we've got a lot that affect our community. And so having local volunteer organizations, some of them, a couple of them are paid, but most of them are not. Most of them are volunteer. A big one right next to my face here, other side, is the Navarre Historical Commission, is being able to capture all the beautiful history in our community and be able to share that in the form of, museums and things like that, where people can go and learn more about where Navarre came from and its history. So that's all within the charter that we put together. It shows people standing up for the community and working together. Well, but we didn't stop there as a group. As we said, okay, we're putting all together all these like great plans and all that stuff, and this is great, and we're trying to meet the people's will. What about right now? What about what's affecting people right now? And a lot of folks love to say like, well, this is gonna raise my taxes because I'm gonna have to pay 1 mil. And they're quick to throw out, you don't care about our taxes, you don't care about government corruption, you're just trying to enlarge it. And of course, that's not the case. And you can talk to any member of our team and see where our values and our hearts lie. But I was like, guys, we can talk about this all day. We have to prove that to the people that we care about them and that we're fighting for them, because it's easy to believe, the media and the slander and things like that that's out there. So if there's opportunities to serve that come along, we need to be ready to do it. And turns out there's an international con man and a criminal who was running the local Holly Navarre water system, which is essentially a regional company because of all the different things it's connected to. We discovered his history. Several folks that are members of our group were doing kind of their own research on this and brought it to us and said, hey, we've brought this up to the county. They won't touch it. Not a single county commissioner will touch this. We brought it to the state attorney. State attorney will not touch this. We've talked to the FBI. They won't touch this. None of them dispute the fact that it's true, but no one wants to get involved into the mess. This is an $87 million industry that hires over 50 employees, and it's a huge moneymaker for a lot of people, and no one wants to get messy and actually break this. And when I saw just how bad it was and how much money was being wasted and all that, which I still think we don't have the bottom of, but we saw evidence of that. We saw this person had a history of going to different communities and taking advantage of them. We worked with several news outlets, and then we released it ultimately ourselves. So they said, listen, the news will cover this, but you've got to take the lead. You as your group, whether you're a tiny nonprofit with your little, we had 30,000, I think we had raised at that point, have to take the lead on this and break the story. And then we'll take it from there. And so we did. We put out videos, and it was terrifying. And I had security cameras and crap in my house on alert, because I'm like, I'm about to expose this criminal network that's going on. And we did. And within 7 days of us exposing that, the Water System Board unanimously voted to fire the CEO, who has since gone on to other countries and done similar things. But we were able to spare Navarre from that, and the proof is in the results of that since then. And this was a team effort. It wasn't just me or a couple people. It was our entire team, and we had several meetings where we discussed this, and we had to take a stand because we care about this community and didn't want to see our money wasted as they continue to raise rates. But it wasn't enough just to call out corruption. We also want to be able to take a stand and set it right, because what if it just goes back to being corrupt? And that's where we ran Mike, veteran, local business owner, phenomenal dude. I'd love for you to meet him if you haven't. He was willing to step up, and I'm so proud of this guy because he ran a clean campaign. He focused on the issues. He took an enormous amount of mudslinging at him, lots of stuff attacking his family. And instead, he stayed focused on the issues. And you can see right there what he stood for, what he continues to stand for. We did videos where we talked about the issues. You can see Carmen and I discussing, how does the elections work? What is proxy voting? Why do we hate it? What is sunshine law? Why do we need it? We went through that, and we ran an education focused campaign for people to realize this matters. This affects your water bill. So we're really, really happy to get him to that point. So that's our successes to date. If you got questions about that, feel free to throw it down, but that's where we've been. That brings us up to this past spring. What's been going on? The team has been extremely busy over the summer. This is a sheet right here where it's just a little map of Navarre, and we just crossed off streets as we delivered material, because one of the big things for us is, okay, so we've demonstrated our values. We've figured out ways that we can make a difference. We've shown that we can succeed at campaigns. We have a feasibility study and charter. The people have a right to know. The people have a right to just soak this up, dwell on it, get informed, ask questions, think through it. And how can we facilitate that? So that you can see right next to me, those are a bunch of boxes that showed up at my house from Vistaprint. So we printed off over 12,000 copies of the material you see right there. And then we worked with our campaign team to bring this to every door that we could in Navarre. And so it shows exactly what our proposal is, and gives you the chance to read it, to think about it, dwell on it. And the same thing for businesses. We specifically wanted businesses to know, hey, this is how this will help you. It will open up revenue streams from taxes, most of which you currently pay, that will help you in your business to be able to improve what you're doing. And we had lots of examples of cities who've done this with success. So that's what we've been doing. Our business team has been meeting with local businesses. Our member team has been focused on email, and hopefully for those that are members on the call, you've gotten an email from Shay. He's been focused on that, just checking in, making sure everything's going good for you. If there's anything we can do. And the campaign team has been going door. They've got about 2,000 more to go, as you can see from this sheet right above me. Once they've crossed off the rest of those, they'll be in a good spot. We'll have informed everybody over the course of the summer. So that's what we've been doing. That's just amazing, amazing stuff. And I'm so proud of them for what they've been able to accomplish over the summer. Opportunities. I got about, I think I should hit the about 5 more minutes if you want to start thinking of your questions. But the last section of this gets into, well, where do we go from here? What's the future? Because that's what people are asking me. And we're going to continue to do the things that have led us to success, but just kick it up a notch. That's what we want to do. So the Holly Navarre water system wasn't just a one-time deal, right? It was an investment in our community, in our future. What we want to see is a rate cut. We have seen the budgets. I've seen exactly how much people are paid in the water system. And I know what the jobs that they're doing and not doing. We've seen the evidences from what Dallas PV did during his tenure. We know that there's waste within that system. And for those that aren't aware, the short story on this is that this is government corruption at its worst, because this system, which is a nonprofit, has a 99-year government contract to act as a monopoly. At that point, it's not free enterprise, it's a monopoly. It is government. And this is something that if you talk to the county commissioners, not a single one of them knows what to do about that 99-year lease. So that they got us, right? They got us. They, say the only thing you can do is get involved in the elections. Well, the elections, they use what's called proxy voting to be able to get a whole lot of people to vote for a specific chosen candidate. And a lot of people don't even know that this is going on. And then they're able to jack up those rates year after year and spend on all sorts of things. We want to see a rate cut. We want to see more efficiency from the system. We want to see tap fees. We want them to be transparent. If you talk to local business owners, they'll tell you over and over again, I have no idea why I'm getting hit with this fee at this time. It doesn't feel transparent, doesn't feel right, and I don't know how to pay it. But then this other person gets off and they don't have to pay it. And why is that? We want that. We want clarity for that. We want businesses to be treated fairly, and to have an understanding of how was this decided, and why can't that be published for different businesses so that we all know what's going on, as opposed to discounts and things like that for certain businesses and not others, which we've seen. Like I said, we want to see proxy voting ended. One person, one vote. We don't want someone turning in 60 votes for themselves. We've literally watched that happen. It's not right. I can understand how like a small, like my little one street HOA is, you sign up for a proxy and stuff, and then you make a decision. That's one thing. This is an $87 million system. We want to know where those votes are coming from, and we want it to be fair. You wouldn't allow proxy voting in a national election. We shouldn't allow it in something as important as our $87 million water company. And then sunshine law. We want people to decide things in public. It's a good law. Our county abides by it. Our state officials abide by it. If they're going to have a 99-year government contract to act as a monopoly, they should abide by it too. And that's the kind of stuff that we've talked to attorneys about as well. So we want to continue to see the water system. I mean, and I'll stay here for 30 more seconds and say that when I first got to Navarre, they said, if you want to get involved in this community, the water system is synonymous with corruption. You've got to get involved in that. That is what people have had issues with for decades, and we've made a difference, but we're not done. So we're going to continue to do that. There's a lot of, and I'll talk about some of the ways that we're going to do that. The things that we've done in terms of acting as more than just, hey, we're looking at incorporation. We care about this community. We're not going to stop caring about this community. So we want to formalize that. We're a 501c4 nonprofit. We'd like to also have a 501c3. This is a charity wing of what we're doing. That's purely devoted to charity. So I just listed some of my favorite projects. There's a dozen of these or more, but some of my favorite ones that we've been involved in is the Jan Foster Memorial Garden. Is beautiful. The Rick Landreth Veterans Memorial. There's a huge opportunity to support their family with that. We've done book signings for people who wrote books that had that were focused on Navarre, had Navarre as a context or setting. That was really fun. That's the photo behind me. I love that. We'd love to do student scholarships to be able to work with students. So Shay, one of our he's our administrative assistant, is going to grad school. So we've been writing recommendations for him. We've been helping him with his school bills and all that stuff. So we'd love to do that for other students and just inspire them to get involved in their community. So that's just a taste of what we'd like to do on the charity side. So that's one of the things that's coming. This is what everybody asks me about, because they get the brochure. They're like, oh, I love it. When's the vote? 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 That's where people are ready. They're ready to vote. We hear that every single day. I want to be very clear about this. The vote is exciting. I would love to see 44% jump up to 54% or 64% or whatever it turns out to be. That would be really cool. To be very clear, this will not stop the establishment, the people who are making decisions about Navarre now, from fighting against incorporation. It's not like you have a vote and then it's over. And then, oh, great, we're done. We have a vote. Now it's going to happen. They will fight you every step of the way. I encourage you to look at the experience of a community called Siesta Key. Siesta Key is down there close to Sarasota. Siesta Key voted for incorporation twice with over 60% of the vote. They had a nonprofit. They worked with their state delegation. They had a bill introduced into the Florida state legislature, and it still didn't make it through because someone killed it at some point. We've seen that with Recall Florida, where they had 113 House members support their bill, and it still didn't make it to the Senate, still didn't become the opportunity for people to vote on it and make it law. So this isn't like a one-stop deal. It'd be really cool to make history and to say, hey, look, people want self-determination. They want home rule. And that's a great stage to get to, and I'm very confident we will get there. However, it's really just the beginning, because you're going to have that vote. You're going to have to get the bill through, which is going to take an enormous amount of pressure to make that happen. Then you're going to have a second vote, and then immediately you go into mayoral elections. You go into city council elections. Are the people that sign up to run for those offices, are they going to be controlled by the establishment? Are they going to be answering to Pensacola or Milton or whatever? Or are they going to answer to Navarre, right? Are they going to be grassroots candidates who really love this community, have demonstrated that? Well, you're going to have to get involved, just like we are in the water system, and fight to maintain the integrity of this community from day one. So this does, even if we have this big victory, I don't want people to think that's everything, but it's very important to us. We do want it to happen, but it's the next stage in what we're doing, not the end. We believe it as a team, and we've discussed this a lot, that we need a second state representative from Navarre. We have one in Joel Rudman, great guy, done a lot of awesome work in Navarre. We believe we need a second one. Currently, the state rep from the south end of Navarre is Alex Andrade, heavily paid by Pensacola. Don't see him as someone who would take a Navarre bill forward, and probably someone who would shoot it down. So we think a second state representative from Navarre, someone who's truly an advocate for this community, that's from this community, and is going to fight for it, is necessary to be able to get this through. Otherwise, you're not going to even make it past the state delegation. Even if Joe Rudman were to introduce a bill after the vote, they'd probably kill it 2-1, right? Or however, the state delegation is made up at that point. So you're going to need to make a statement here at the state level. All this is expensive. Hopefully, if you're doing numbers in your head, you're probably right, because this is going to take the community coming together, and it's going to take some investment to get us here. And then my last couple of points: how can you get involved? What are some ways to get involved to help Navarre stand on its feet? The big one is funding. So like I said, our board has invested a lot. I've invested a lot because I care about this community. I know a lot of people on this call have been people who have invested a lot. We've got to have businesses get involved as well, truly businesses whose desires align with the people of Navarre. Because we talk to business owners every day, and some of them are kind of focused on their specific, items, and that's great. But you've also got to align those with the people. We've shown that in our survey. You can talk to people. What do folks want? It needs to align. So we don't want businesses who just don't care, who don't think Navarre is a culture, who, are just like, whatever happens to this community, my investments will be fine. We want people who are tied closely so that we're not having to compromise our values as we move forward. We want investors who want to see smart growth and better services for all Navarre, not just a few, or not just one slice of the pie. And then, of course, members who donate and help the campaign. You can get involved. When I say donate, it doesn't just have to be fiscal. It can be, your time, your effort. I can give you all kinds of things that we're doing, recording videos on your phone. There's all kinds of cool ways to get involved and express, what gets you excited about this. We need candidates. For this. We need people who are willing to fight against corruption and for Navarre's right to self-determination. Mike went through an enormous amount of ridicule and mudslinging. It was tough on his family. I talked to his wife, the night that they came after him. She said, none of this is true. This is horrible. I don't get a chance to talk about it. I was like, put out a Facebook post, do your thing, right? And they were tough. And look what happened is that they stepped up and made a difference. And I've seen that from numerous members of our group. I've also seen people who just like, what, I'm out. Like it's too negative, it's too nasty. But in order to get cleaner, more efficient government, we've got to have people who believe in the American values and are willing to fight for them. That's how we get better return. And that's how you kind of fight off some of the establishment stuff that has been in Navarre for years. The last part of this, and I'll try to move my head here so you can see it. Heroes with the thick skin who can persevere against constant shaming and ridicule. We have seen this. I'm going to show you a slide in a second. It was really funny to me. I was overseas and I had a friend of mine 7,000 miles away from the States. And he was just like, dude, what's going on online? I was like, what are you talking about? Because I hadn't even looked at it. I've been working. And he's just like, yeah, like all these people are talking about you. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that. Right. And so he's having a conversation. He's like, yeah, this is disgusting what people are saying. I'm like, yeah. And they'll do that. It's just something that we've grown to accept is like, if you take a stand for Navarre, establishment that's paid by Pensacola, people from Holly, wherever you want to say, they're going to come out against you. It doesn't matter, what your political party is, doesn't matter how long you lived in Navarre, they will come out against you. And if there's not enough there, they'll make it up. They'll make it up, right? And so you got to go into this with a thick skin. I think a lot of people think, well, maybe I'll just talk to them or I'll rationalize, and you can try by all means. But when someone is paid by folks who want to keep Navarre where it is, to keep it as this cash cow for the county and to keep it down so it doesn't compete with Pensacola and attract investors that they already have. If you want to see, if people are doing that, then it doesn't matter how nice you are, they're going to stick to those loyalties, right? So there is a space for maturity and civil conversation. And notice when I talk about Mike's campaign is that he kept it clean, and that we love that. We want to keep it clean. We want to be able to defend ourselves without going low in return. But this is the kind of stuff that we deal with. Is we need people to see through the fiction that's out there, the personal shaming and all this stuff, people being like, made fun of as clowns in a very juvenile way. That's just comes with the territory. It's politics. I try not to take it personally. I try, to just kind of like let it ride off and keep on fighting. But every one of our team members has dealt with this, and we have no reason to think that's going to change. And they're just going to continue to do that. So if you're going to stand up for Navarre, you need to have a thick skin to get to the truth. And the best part of this is knowing these people, having gone through life with them the past several years, know exactly who they are, know exactly what their value set is. And I see it every day. And it's just a matter of time before the rest of Navarre sees that too. So that's the presentation. Really appreciate you guys. I'm going to start with the written questions. And board members, you can jump in too. If you got something to add, by all means, please let me know. I've got looks like about 19 minutes here, and then we hit the hour mark. So I'm going to hit a couple of these, and then feel free to either raise your hand or unmic if you've got any questions or thoughts or feedback. It's all open. Kim says, why are folks against incorporation? What's the downside to it? So let me, and I want to do my best to do justice to this, because you can obviously ask them, and I encourage you to do it. But I will tell you a big part of this is a lot of folks are against it because of the way that it's been tried from time to time, right? Like I just mentioned a group, and I won't name names because I'm not trying to attack anybody, but there's some folks who went after this, and like, who knows, right? Like, how do you incorporate a town? That's not something I do professionally, right? Like, my Air Force guy, like that's not something they teach me. So we're all kind of learning, how do we serve our community? And folks have tried different strategies. And some of it's like, hey, I didn't even know what the proposal was. How can I vote on this? Nancy can tell you when we first met, she was kind of going door to door to get signatures from corporation. And I asked questions like, how much is it going to cost? What are the boundaries going to be? What are the services going to be? Is it going to be a city council or a strong mayor? What's the form of government? And she didn't know. She's like, we're just trying to generate support. We don't really know the answer to those questions. And I thought, well, maybe we should have answered those questions before we go ask people to sign up or donate or whatever, right? So it's kind of a shift in strategy. And I've learned, exactly like, what people want through feedback. And I've had to adapt and evolve. So I'm not, against that. But all it takes is someone say, oh, hey, I didn't like this about this group, or I didn't like that about it being forced down my throat, or I didn't get a chance to read that brochure. And then they feel left out, and they feel like someone's being deceptive. And that's why we've moved so slowly with our effort, is trying to give every opportunity to communicate. But if people feel like something's being forced on them, then they're going to be against it. And so I think that's a number one reason, is that people are going to make a decision that will increase your taxes by just under $1 million, then they have every right to look under the hood and see every detail about that before they make that decision. They need to make sure that they're getting what they call an ROI, a return on their investment, and that it's worth that $1 million. And that's on our group to demonstrate. Because if you have a city that does nothing, adds no value to your life, doesn't bring any additional revenue home, it's fully staffed by establishment politicians, which we've experienced in this community before, it adds no value to your life, then what's the point? You just paid more for nothing. And that's why it was so important for us to take a stand with the water system and show this is not a group that abides corruption. We are the ones that took a stand and will continue to take a stand. We're not afraid to do that because, unlike some folks who come to this community and try to rip it off, rip people off, we're not those folks. We are locals, just like everyone on this call, that are fighting for it. But if we don't make that argument, then then people are going to say they're against it, right? And then there's just the nature of, hey, this is building a city is something that we didn't have. It's change. What are we going to lose? What are we going to lose? Are we going to lose our money? Are we going to lose something in the process? People tend to be nervous about something that's going to involve any sort of change. What's ultimately helpful, Kim, is showing people who we are and our values, because I look at the founding fathers. Those are people that really meant a lot to me growing up, and then I continue to read. And the founding fathers, they fought off British taxation. They threw the tea in the harbor and put their lives on the line. And then as soon as they were free from the British, they started working on setting up a government. They taxed themselves, but they did it under the Constitution. And then they made decisions about where that money was spent. And that's exactly what our inspiration needs to be, in my opinion. So, and then Kim said, I'll try to catch up with you. Cool. All right. What else? Is anybody questions they want to type, or feel free to unmute and we can have a little discussion. I've got, like I said, I got about 15 minutes that I set aside for the Zoom call. And I'll give you a few minutes to think about it.
Wes, I'd just like to make a comment. This is Chuck Pullman. I think one of the things that we're doing differently, and you've touched on it, than the other groups in the past have tried to do, is I think our information campaign is much, much stronger out there. We're delivering brochures. We're talking to businesses on a week-to-week basis. We're getting the message out there. You still have to convince the people that this is what they really want to do. They want to vote for incorporation. But in the past, and I've been involved in some of those past situations of incorporation in the past, and I just think that our team has gotten the information out much, much better to the voting public, and they can make a decision, a good decision, one way or the other. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what we've been trying to do since the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. It's about making sure the information is available. And then especially for feedback, Chuck, that's been the biggest thing, is if I'm doing something wrong, I want to know it. And that's where the anti-incorporation side has been helpful at times, when they give us constructive criticism, because people told me numerous times, if you care so much about this community, then fight for it, because the water system's corrupt. And I didn't know that in 2018 and 20, I didn't know that. I was like, why is the water system corrupt? And they were like, oh, buddy, let me tell you, and then I was like, please. And then I learned, I was like, holy smokes, like an international comment, it's like from a James Bond movie, And they said, yeah, if you want to make a difference in Navarre, start there. And so we did. We did. People said, if you want a city proposal, it needs to be low taxes, because people are taxed enough already. They can't afford to do anything more. If you want to wrestle revenue back, you need to do it on the cheap. And I said, cool, let's do it on the cheap. That's a 1 mil or a 0.95 mil proposal. That's pretty dang good. So if there's other feedback, I'm open for it. What we get, unfortunately, is a lot of like not constructive feedback. Okay, like I'm not a liar, you know what I mean? Nancy's a sweetheart, so is Carmen, and you look at people like Mike. I mean, he was just completely unfounded when they attacked him for the water system. Like, ask his wife. She loves him to death. She said this guy's a hero and an amazing father. So it's illegitimate, at that point, that she's the boss on the subject, right? And so if it's constructive feedback, then I'm happy to hear it. Take out the electric buses, cool, gone. We had a discussion as a team and it was gone. Someone said reduce the mayoral salary. We had a discussion to what? How about the average income in Navarre? And everybody said, yeah, cool, right? We sent out a survey to our members. We all agreed. Boom, it was done. The Holly discussion, it was kind of mixed. Holly's kind of like 50-50 on whether they want to be included. Some people do, some people don't. And we said, cool, until it's a stronger support, we'll take that out of the study. And so we took out Holly from the study specifically because people in Holly were upset and felt like it was being forced down their throats. And I was like, cool, I'm not going to do it. If it's 50, now if it was 60 or 70, right, in favor, be like, okay, we need to look at including this. In fact, with Holly, we spent about a month researching a historical district, which would have given them their own zoning board just for Holly. Just for Holly. We did a meeting up there with about 20 folks and said, this is for you. Nobody in mainland Navarre on the beach would be able to be on this board. This is for you. They said, yeah, we don't want that either, right? They weren't interested. Cool. All right, done. no skin off my back. If you don't want self-government, if you want to trust the county to provide for all of your needs and see more clear cutting and see more of your revenue spent elsewhere, then by all means, like that is you. So it is has to be an act of service. And that's, the marketing stuff and getting the message out is great, Chuck, but it's the heart that's behind it is the most important thing. All right, let me get to a couple of these other ones. Noreen says, how do you dispute when people say they don't want another layer of government? That's not another layer of government, right? So this is a really, really important, Noreen, important point, Noreen. I'm glad you brought it up. Is you have the federal layer of government, okay? You have the state level of government. You have the county level of government. And then you have the extreme local or the city layer of government. And below that, an HOA maybe, right? Like or not, some people think, well, there's nothing in the city, so it's just freedom there. It's a free for all, right? We have the United States of America, we've got the state of Florida, we've got Santa Rosa County. There's nothing in the city. Totally untrue, because that vacuum that's left without a city doesn't go untouched. What happens is institutions like Holly Navarre Water System exceed their boundaries and fill that vacuum. Okay, the county will do it. The Chamber of Commerce will do it. Historical families will do it, right? And a lot of them mean well. They're like, they see a vacuum. No one's making decisions. There are still people every single day that make decisions that a mayor or a city or attorney would. Okay, so when I say it's not another layer of government, what I mean is that layer of government of decision making is done. The difference is it's done without local representation. You do not have a local representation, elected official making those decisions. So you'll have other people here and there making decisions that affect zoning, that affect parks and recreation, that affect all those things. What we are talking about with the layer of government is that you've already got a layer of government. You just may not know. People didn't know who Dallas Peavy was. Well, he knew who you were because you were paying him, and you were paying for his brand new cars. You were paying his salary. You were paying for his house. You're paying for him to run that institution. You may not have known him. You may not have voted for him. Okay. But he was there occupying a place of institutional power in your community with a criminal record that spanned decades. Okay. That's a problem. If Dallas Peavy was running for office, then all of that would have been exposed, right? You would have seen it. And so that, anyway, I could go on and on about this because we see this and this is where the military in me comes out, is because we see a government collapse, right? Like Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And then what happens? Other people fill that vacuum. You see in Afghanistan, a government goes down, people fill that vacuum. If you don't have an elected constitutional representative government, then someone else is going to fill that. And when they're unelected and they can stay there permanently, and then they can make these decisions and you don't even know that they're the ones making it, that to me is a problem. And frankly, it's un-American. So that is exactly how I'll respond to that. And I'm very passionate about that because people accuse it's another layer of government. No, it's bringing it into the sunlight. It's bringing, and that's why when people get into incorporation and they think, oh, I just got to be nice and I'm going to introduce a proposal and then we'll see what happens. If that proposal gains traction, you will run up against that establishment. You will find out very quickly the minute that you do something that certain people from Pensacola don't like, that you will create friction and they will come after you. And it's really hard when I see really good people who experience it, are like, holy smokes, I had no idea. Yeah, when you have a cash cow of a community like Navarre, and trust me, it is with its tax base, with the beach and everything else, people are invested in that and they want to see their ROI. And if you get in value between certain people and their money, expect resistance. And that's where you'll see, oh my goodness, there is local decision making happening, including by people who are not necessarily local officials. So that's my answer to that one. Hopefully that makes sense to me. That's one I feel passionate about. Rachel said, Navarre Beach want to be a town without the north side. What do you think? So we gave a presentation a couple months ago, right before I left for overseas, where I kind of laid out our proposal. And there was a gentleman, I don't know if he's running this, but he brought up the question and he said, what if we could incorporate without the mainland? That's up to them. That's because I believe that they're coming from the spirit of self-determination and, that they're following American values, same as us. I'm not gonna stand in their way for that, but they need to know that's gonna be a really, really hard road for them to go on their own, because again, who owns the beach? Santa Rosa County and Escambia County via a lease. Who makes decisions about the beach? It's not just the leaseholders. There's a whole lot more people that are invested in Navarre Beach. And if you're going to try to wrestle control away from them and give it to the people, you're going to face resistance. And is that something they can do on their own? I don't know. I'd love to partner with them, and to help. And I think there's ways that the mainland with its massive tax base can help, and the beach can help as long as we respect and put in some boundaries. But if they want to try on their own, then God bless them, like best of luck, So if they were doing this just to like make a profit or to create jobs for themselves or something, then obviously I'd be against it, because that's not why we're doing what we're doing. But if they're doing it for the right reasons, then I see them as brothers and sisters that are fighting for home rule just like us. And there's ways that can be done. I mean, St. Augustine, I think there's a city of St. Augustine and there's a city of St. Augustine Beach. So, there's ways that could be done if we were to work it out. Let me get to Kim again. I assume with incorporation, there won't be 10 more car washes, TRs, or storage building. Using up all of our prime real estate probably will be too late by then. Let me talk about this. I've only got a couple minutes left, but these are really important points, Kim.
Wait, sorry, let me butt in just because Mike said he would fill me in so I don't waste any more of y'all's time, because I know everybody else knows but me. So I'm gonna talk to him after we're done.
Okay. I will
But thank you.
It's a great question, though. I'll briefly touch on it because it's definitely worth it.
Okay.
Short 1 minute answer is that zoning would go from the county and they would shift to locals, purely locals making decisions. I think there's been locals on the zoning board often, but it would be entirely locals making those zoning decisions under Navarre city laws, and that would change. The other thing is the whole it's too late. Take a look at redevelopment. It's a big part of our proposal. It's called a CRA, Community Redevelopment Agency. What that involves is the city using resources from the state and fed to be able to renew some of that history of Navarre. We need that badly. It involves them kind of picking up some of properties that are just absolutely tanking, fixing them up, and then using them for good purposes. So we could talk about CRAs all day. I'm very passionate about it because we need to bring back Navarre's best kept secret. We need to bring back some of the history that's currently being lost. And there's ways to do that. So in my mind, it's too late.
Wes, let me spend a minute on that also. Jerry Foster here.
Yeah, go quick, because I don't want to keep people too late. Go ahead.
I moved to Navarre 18 years ago. I have close to 48 years in real estate, spent 29 in commercial real estate in Northern Virginia. So that's kind of my expertise. And what they did next to public is sinful. At 12:30, 1:45 in the morning, commissioners rezoned what is currently being built next to Publix. I don't even want to use the word that's there. But initially, we had a mall that was going to come in with a upscale AMC movie theater, bowling alleys. They were in negotiations with Dillard's to put a big box department store here. They were in negotiations with Dave and Buster's, along with other major corporations around the country, to have us have a shopping mall where citizens from the area would come to Navarre, spend a day, spend their money going to the movies, going to eateries, and enjoying life here in Navarre, and then going home. At 12:30, 12:45-ish in the morning, they being the 5 commissioners in Milton, voted to change the variance to what we currently have, which is 332, in essence, apartments in a 3-story building without elevators. And yeah, we're going to get a few little stores to help us, but now we have close to 500 more cars at that intersection, which is not what we need. Had we become a city, we could have controlled that, and we could have made it a better situation for our community. That's all I want to say.
I appreciate it, Jerry. Yeah, no, that's really good stuff. And the city stuff, it's not magic, right? It's not magic. You can see decision-making being done at Milton. You can see decision-making done at Gulf Breeze. You could even see it at Jay, where they're getting several $1 million in infrastructure revenue. And cities aren't perfect. It's not like this is like God's golden egg, right? That's going to fix every single problem. What it does, though, is it brings the conversation into the family, And I think that's the best way to think about this is you can have a family with dad and a mom and kids. We may not always agree, but we discuss things as a family and then we move out from there, right? That's how my family is like, do we want to go to the movies today? We all talk about it and everybody kind of gets their say and we make it, is this what we want to do or do we want to go to the park or right? Like you discuss that right now. And there was going to be struggles. There'll be struggles with a city of Navarre and someone's going to look at it and say, oh, look at this city did something silly, like, and it was wrong. And that may happen, but we do it together, right? And we learn from it. And so what I'm so proud of this group is that as a team, we have demonstrated that as best we know how, and we have learned, and I haven't been perfect. There's times where they get under my skin. I see there's a comment from, I think it was Sherry, who was like, you think a lot and you're always professional. My wife would say, not always, right? Like I'm not, and I've had people say, hey, listen, son, you're messing up. And Jerry's one of them, you're messing, and I 100% have. But as a team, as a community, we know our values are that we love this place and we love each other and we bring those perspectives and we keep working on stuff until we get it. What I can't abide, what is really hard for me is watching decisions made in the dark, is decisions made and revenue that's gone elsewhere when it could be here. And it's not always from a place of just manipulation and evil. Sometimes it is. A lot of times it's, well, they're not a municipality, right? They're not eligible. If they're not a municipality, then they're not eligible for this state grant or this federal grant or this tax revenue program. A lot of times it's on us. But what we have to do as a team and as a community is we have to stand up and we have to say enough is enough. We may not agree on everything, but we agree on this principle of self-government that just like our founding fathers, we have the ability to make this decision ourselves and we deserve it. And we want our community to be something that we decide in the future. Does that look like you have a town center? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, it's something we decide. And what's beautiful about Navarre is when you go door to door and you talk to people, especially when you get offline, right? Like you get off Facebook and all the fake profiles and garbage on there. You talk to people, they know exactly what they want. And I'll bring you back to the survey we did. It was immediately clear that people wanted infrastructure. It was immediately clear that they wanted more parks and recreation. People will tell you exactly what they want. And often it's pretty easy to understand. It's harder to provide because the situation involves so many voices outside our community telling us what we should think or who we should like or who we should hate. So that's
Wes, the key phrase there is if we become a city, not if, but when, it would be locals making decision for the local community, not the three commissioners on the north side.
So I'll kind of end on this last slide of here's the ways to get involved. Talk to us. We're looking for the investor. We're looking for feedback. What is it going to take to be able to get the resources to be able to get Navarre? If we're going to have these votes, if we're going to have these elections coming up for the water system, also we need the financial support to get there. We need the team to get there. We've been building that for a couple of years now. We need people to step up for that. So preservenavarre.com is the website. Seems like all of you have access to be able to contact the email. So you can do that as well. You can talk to us offline anytime. We'll make time for you. And then we can go from there. But we'll be happy to do these Zoom meetings kind of easier for people, especially with kids to get on. My kids are running around behind me. So a little bit easier than going to a meeting at St. Sylvester, but we can still do that kind of stuff too. So, hey, thank you everybody for taking your time. If you had questions that come up or that I didn't get to, feel free to email us. And, you can always text us too, or whatever is convenient for you. We'll be happy to work through it. So y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. And then just stay tuned on the email distro and Facebook and everything else that we're on for what's coming next. All right. God bless y'all. Bye.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Great job, Wes.